sued his former employer, Slidell. And that's the day before he was eligible for Medicare, and there's some limited significance to that. He alleged in paragraph 17 of his complaint that he was denied his vested right to the benefit, and I'm reading from it now, the benefit promised by the city of Slidell in section 21-21B1, and that code reference comes up all the time, of the city's code of ordinances. He retired on August the 1st of 2008, not long after his 60th birthday, and 25 days later, on August the 26th of 2008, the city of Slidell passed Ordinance 3493, which amended that Ordinance 21-21B1 that's at issue here. Now, when he retired, and before the ordinance was changed, what the ordinance said, and this is what he's relying on, it said, and I'm not going to read all of it, just the relevant part, retired city employees shall participate in the city's health insurance program. A city employee may elect to continue to participate in the city's health insurance plan. And Mr. Bourne did that. But here's the part we're fighting about. It goes on to say the city shall pay 100% of the cost of the individual coverage elected by the former employee beginning at the time benefits are received. Now, when he retired, he was eligible, and he did receive those benefits, but at that point, he's not Medicare eligible. He is still 60. So he's getting the same city benefits, and his family is getting the same city benefits that they got when he was still an employee. So let's be clear about the argument. We're not fighting about a defined benefit plan. We're not fighting about a benefit that said, we're going to pay Mr. Bourne $5,000 a month. What we're fighting about is a health plan, and what the city promised to the retiree as part of that health plan. Now, what it said is the health insurance program is elected, he participates, and when he retires, he participates in that program, and let's address first the language at issue. He elected to participate, and here's the plan language. It's at the trial exhibit. It's our first exhibit. It's the page number, the Bates number is 00044. That's 4 zeros and 44. It's at page 42 of the plan. And it says plan exclusions. For all medical benefits shown in the schedule of benefits are charged for the following as not covered. And then at number 13, government coverage. Care, treatment, or supplies furnished by a program or agency funded by any government. So, he's not, when he's 65, he's not going to get paid what Medicare pays. And then it goes on to say, and this is at exhibit number 000, that's 4 zeros and 55, page 53 of the plan. Medicare will pay primary. When Medicare is to be the primary payer, this plan will base its payment upon benefits that would have been paid by Medicare under Parts A and B, doctors and hospitals, or actually hospitals and doctors, regardless of whether or not the person was enrolled under both of those parts. In other words, when the retiree like Mr. Bourne becomes Medicare eligible at age 65, the day after he filed suit, if he does not enroll in Medicare, the city health plan will not pay for the primary expense of health care given. It will only pay secondary. Therefore, Mr. Bourne had no reasonable expectation that after age 65, the city would pay his health insurance as though he was not Medicare eligible. That's important, because there's been a lot of discussion back and forth. But it is clear that he was Medicare eligible, and if he wanted to participate in the city's plan, this is before it was changed, he would have to apply for Medicare. So what is at issue now? What's at issue now is, does the city have the right to say to Mr. Bourne and other similar employees that instead of getting Medicare Parts A and B, he gets Medicare Part C, and that is a Medicare Advantage plan. That's what it's saying, and it's not forcing him to take Medicare Advantage, he can decide not to participate at all and get Medicare Parts A and B as any other 65-year-old would. But the city is not going to pay for it. His rights not changed. It's only what the city will pay for. And the city, to save money, said, if you want to be in this plan, you're 65, you participate in Medicare Advantage. Now, the question is, should Mr. Bourne have had an expectation of this possibility, that the city could change its plan? Now, the city plan, the city health insurance plan, said these things. And this is page 1. This is the introduction. And this is, again, in Exhibit 1, page 1. It's page number 3. It's 5 zeros and a 3. And then, however, the city reserves the right to terminate, suspend, discontinue, or amend the plan at any time and for any reason. Changes in the plan may occur in any or all parts of the plan, including benefit coverage, deductibles, maximums, co-payments, exclusions, limitations, definitions, eligibility, and then reimbursement from the plan can be reduced or denied because of certain provisions in the plan, such as a lack of coverage. All that's on page 1. Then at page 67, this is exhibit 000069, 4 zeros and a 69. Amending and terminating the plan. This is in the plan itself. The employer intends to maintain the plan indefinitely. However, it reserves the right at any time to amend, suspend, or terminate the plan in whole or in part. This includes amending the benefits under the plan. Clearly, Mr. Bourne had no reasonable expectation that the city health plan would not change. All of us, over the last 10 years at least, have seen constant changes to health plans. The Affordable Care Act has made changes to health plans, and for this particular plan, it changed 11 times. The carriers have changed from Blue Cross to Gilsbar to Cigna. Terms of the plans have changed. They changed when he was an employee, and they've changed since. And this change that we're talking about today was put into the plan itself in the very next year, in beginning of 09. So, health insurance benefits paid the cost of benefits, deductibles, and coverage. And all that has changed. Mr. Bourne retired. Mr. Bourne should have had an expectation that the plan could change. The city chose carefully what plan it would have. The city acted prudently to protect taxpayers and beneficiaries, which would be Mr. Bourne, to make sure it could afford to provide those benefits. All right, and I want to reserve 10 minutes if I can. Prescription. I won't have too much to say about it, but I do want to say a little. Mr. Bourne became eligible when he retired. And the question under 3494 and 3495 is, when is it exigible? Now, this is not 10-year prescription. This is a suit based on deferred compensation. If the city gave health plan benefits to an employee and it was not a form of deferred compensation, then Article 7, Section 14 of the Louisiana Constitution is at issue that this is a prohibited donation. So this is deferred compensation, but it's not a defined benefit like Ladue or a benefit under DROP like Fishbond. This is a health insurance benefit. And so he became eligible for the city's plan when he retired in August of 2008. So, when the city changed it 25 days later, and whether he knew or he didn't know of the change is irrelevant. Knowledge of the change is not an issue. And I'm not going to stand before you and say that we know whether he knew or he didn't know. It's not in evidence, it's not in the record, and I don't think it's relevant. What we do know is that the claim became exigible because he met the requirements of being a retiree eligible for the plan. He was retired, he's been 10 years in service, he'd been 1 year in the plan, and now he was eligible, and if they changed the plan, and he didn't like to change, and that's what we're at issue about, he had 3 years to file suit, and he didn't meet that requirement. He waited 5 years. And his point is, well, I only got the benefit when I applied for Medicare. And that's when I'm entitled to now get the Medicare Advantage or the Medicare Parts A and B. But the issue isn't when he would get it. And this is different than Fishbein, and it's different from Ledoux. And the issue is, when was it exigible? When was he entitled to any benefit? And that's when he became a retiree as part of the plan. And that's why 3 years applies here, and that's why this claim is prescribed.
Are you telling us that you would not have filed a peremptory exception of no right of action at that time had he filed suit? Would he have not been escorted out of court via a peremptory exception?
Well, of course, I can't say what I would have done, but I would say this. I should have lost. If I had filed a peremptory exception saying he had, or prematurity or something like that, I don't think I win, because he stands before the court and says, Your Honors, I'm retired. I'm eligible right now. They've made a change which is going to affect me when I become 65, and I can't wait to raise that issue. Now, if you were 18 when he joined the city, and 30 years later he retired, so he's 48 years old, does the city have to wait 17 years to find out, even though the change in the plan is right there? The change that he's going to complain about is right in front of everyone? Now, whether he knew or he didn't know is irrelevant. He has the obligation, because the plan has been changed, to find out. That's what the law is. Civil Code doesn't say you have to rely on your knowledge. Only what's the situation. And, yeah, I lose that peremptory exception.
Let me ask a question. The ordinance, section 21-21, referred to the Humana Medicare Advantage plan in one sentence.
Yes, sir.
And in a separate and distinct sentence, it refers to the city's health insurance program, thereby, it seems to me, recognizing a distinction between the city plan and the Humana plan in the ordinance itself. Can you address that, please?
Yes, Your Honor. The ordinance only says that you're going to participate in the city's plan, whatever that may be. And the city's plan was that it was going to substitute Medicare Advantage, which is the Humana plan, for Medicare Parts A and B. Have I answered your question?
Well, not really, because it seems to me when the ordinance makes reference to two different plans, we are looking at two different plans, and he had a vested right to be a part of the city's health plan, and which is separate, different, and distinct as recognized in this ordinance from the Humana Medicare Advantage plan. So it seems like there's a dichotomy. There's two plans. One is the city's plan, and one is another plan, although they're both obviously administered by the city. And
Your Honor, I think I can address
if you need to look over the ordinance, you can come back on rebuttal and address it if you wish.
Because I think there is a good answer, but the words are important. Any other questions? Then I still have 14 minutes and 25 seconds.
Oh, yeah, 15:32 and counting.
Oh, even better. Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honors. Tom Huvall on behalf of the plaintiff, Dean Bourne, who was the longtime employee of the city of Slidell and obviously the retiree in this case. And I think what the case is all about is the fact that while Mr. Bourne was an employee and at the time he retired, the city of Slidell made a promise to him, and they memorialized that promise in a written document, that being this ordinance 2121. And what the ordinance very clearly said was that if Mr. Bourne met this criteria, and nobody disputes that he does, and nobody disputes what the ordinance says, it says if you meet this criteria, the right you have, and this is the vested right at issue, the vested right you have will be to participate in the city health insurance plan, not the Humana Medicare Advantage plan, which didn't even exist at the time, not some other plan. There was no other plan. That was the only plan. That is the plan they were talking about. So Mr. Bourne retires, makes his election, and he gets what the city promised him he would get, and that is the right to participate. what this is all about is that 5 years later, he's notified by the city that we are about to terminate your right to participate. What we promised you you would have, we're going to take away. And that's when he moved very quickly to protect that right. This same issue, it's a somewhat unique situation in that a prior city retiree in the exact same situation as Mr. Bourne, when the city attempted to apply this to him, he fought it as well. Went all the way to the First Circuit. The First Circuit recognized what it is we're saying right now, and that is the vested right that couldn't be taken away was the right to participate in that plan. The First Circuit said that in the Singletary case. This court, the First Circuit denied an application for rehearing in that case, and this court denied an application for writs in that particular case. What the city has argued in its brief is that, well, notwithstanding the fact that you've got this protected, vested right as set forth in that statute, we can disregard that and we can look at the plan document itself that the ordinance says you got the right to participate in, and we can look into the language of that plan and somehow take away what we've given you with the right hand, we're going to take away with the left hand. Because the plan document that you got the right to participate in says it can be amended. What I'm suggesting is amendments for things like copays, changing from $10 to $20, network providers, the actual insurer, whether it be Blue Cross or Cigna or through Gilsbar. The plan itself can be amended in that regard, but that is very distinct from the ability to take away his right to participate in the first place.
Has that language regarding amending or terminating always been part and parcel of the plan long before he retired? Or is that new language added after he retired?
No, I think that language was in the plan that existed at the time of his retirement.
So you would then concede that he, upon his retirement, he entered into or became party to a plan that the city said, look, you can be part of the city plan, but we reserve the right to terminate. So they could literally terminate this plan, but they can't put him into the Humana plan.
That's right. The plan documents.
They really want to save some money. They can just cancel the plan, but you can cancel it, but you can't put me in with Humana.
You can't take away my right to participate in that plan so long as
It might not even exist if we decide to terminate it.
Well, so long as it does exist, Mr. Bourne, as a city retiree, has the right to participate in it. And there are any number of reasons why there are some inherent protections against the idea that it would just be terminated and wiped out. One of which is that all current employees and all current elected officials participate in that plan. And I venture to say probably like the fact that they get to participate in that plan. And the plan has not been terminated. And Mr. Bourne has not disputed the ability of anyone to amend the plan. But what he disputes is the right to say, we've got the plan, but we're taking away your right to participate in that plan.
So long as the plan exists, I get to be a party of it.
That's right.
And if it doesn't exist, obviously, that's a different story, but that's not what's before us today.
It has not been terminated. That's not the issue. And what the ramifications of that would be would have to be left for another day.
I saw something in something that I was reading, and I apologize, I don't remember the source, but it seemed like it laid out the benefits, and that it seems like he had better benefits with the Humana plan than he did with the city plan. Am I mistaken? Was that part of the record? Is that part of the evidence, or was that just
What's your
something in a brief that was really not part of the
Well,
record?
it wasn't a brief, and I do not recall specifically, but I think that there may very well have been some kind of pamphlet or brochure or synopsis in the record that purported to compare certain aspects of the Humana plan to the city plan. And you were right, certainly relative to what was in the city's brief, it lays out things that at first blush would suggest, well, what's the problem here? The Humana seems better anyway. Why?
Yeah, it's like they fight to stay in a worse plan.
Well, my response to that is the city plan is about a 100-page document. I venture to say the Humana plan is probably about the same. And I don't think that you can do a true comparison and understand the ramifications and the impact in every conceivable scenario by a simple few-line comparison of certain simplistic things like copays and deductibles. You've got inside of a plan like this, you've certainly got far more issues that could arise. And I think one of the issues is it's virtually impossible for Mr. Bourne or anybody else to conceive of every possible scenario that might arise. But what the Singletary Court recognized is that there are certainly reasons why someone would rather not be in the Humana Advantage plan as opposed to the city plan in this instance, or the traditional Medicare with the city acting as excess. I think one of the things has to do with network providers and things of that nature.
The question I posed to opposing counsel regarding section 2121, and it apparently references the Humana Medicare Advantage plan in one sentence and the city's health insurance program in another sentence, thereby apparently recognizing a distinction between these two. Could you elaborate on that or discuss that, please?
It does. In the effort to amend the ordinance after Mr. Bourne retired, that's where the language appears, and they very clearly recognized the distinction. There was no reference to any distinction in the ordinance that existed as of the time of the retirement because there was no other plan. It was only the city health insurance plan, but that recognizes the distinction. The other thing I think that evidences the very clear distinction and the fact that we're talking about two entirely different plans is the record itself. The city plan was introduced as Exhibit 1, and a Humana Medicare plan was introduced as, I'm not sure the exhibit number, but another entirely different exhibit. So the city recognized that fact, and so we've got these separate plans. Mr. Bourne is entitled to maintain the one that he elected to participate in and that the city promised him he could. And to be clear, what happened or what happens before they amended the statute, the way in which this would work, is that there was a coordination of benefits provision in the city plan that existed. But all that meant was that at the time he turned 65 and became Medicare eligible, it didn't end his right to participate in the city plan. It simply shifted Medicare as the primary insurer with the city as the excess insurer. So that's the way it was going to work. That's the way it was supposed to work. That's the expectation that Mr. Bourne and Mr. Singletary, who filed the earlier case, had at the time that they retired. Relative to the prescription issue, the point, or one of the points that we make relative to that is that until Mr. Bourne turned 65, there was no guarantee he was going to be 65. There was no guarantee that an amendment that the city may have attempted to introduce and a change they may have attempted to introduce that had no application to Mr. Bourne, no real practical effect on Mr. Bourne until he turned 65, wouldn't be changed again to eliminate that possibility. I think it would be unfair to impose on a retiree who receives the promise, makes the election, everything is moving along just as he expected, just as he had elected, just as the city had promised, to impose upon that retiree an obligation to take steps to address something that may not happen, in his case, for another 5 years. Or, if he was 48, as was alluded to earlier, for another, 15 years. And that's the point relative to prescription. Two things. First of all, the issue and the city's action that Mr. Bourne Bourne chose to file suit on was not going to occur, was not going to take effect until he turned 65. That's when they were going to fail. And that was the term that seemed to be used in the Fishbone case when this court was trying to determine when did prescription begin to run. In that case, it was when the employer failed to do something. The failure here would have been the failure to allow Mr. Bourne to continue to participate in the plan and receive post-age 65 benefits when he turned 65. Before that, it would have been premature for him to have done anything. It certainly would have been an unfair burden to place on him to do anything. The other point relative to prescription is that the city wants prescription to begin from the date of the legislative act, which would be the date that the ordinance was changed after he retired. I couldn't find any support for the idea that it ought to run from that date. But what is important here, and the trial court and the appellate court, but really the trial court really got it right, relying upon Singletary, was that Singletary said the amendment to the ordinance that occurred after Mr. Bourne retired, or after Mr. Singletary retired, could not be applied retroactively to him to take away that vested right. So if the statute could not be applied to him because of that principle, then how could prescription begin to run from the date of the enactment of a statute that doesn't apply to him to begin with? So the trial court and the First Circuit got it right when they said no, prescription is going to begin to run when they take away something that he had a vested right to continue to receive. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
First, to answer your question, the original plan, before it was changed, which you can find in the defendant's exhibit, Bourne 0002, said the city shall contribute to a program of health insurance for all full-time city employees. And it says that he may elect to continue participating in the city's health insurance plan. Of course, in the first one, it doesn't talk about Medicare Advantage or Humana at all. But then in the change, which is our exhibit, that is the city's exhibit number 4,
Went into effect after he retired, right?
correct. Well, that change applied to everyone, but part of it applied to this retirement situation. And what it says is this. It says each city retiree shall, upon reaching the age of 65, apply for Medicare coverage Parts A and B. The city shall provide Medicare Advantage coverage at no cost to the retiree. So it doesn't really talk about Humana. And the city is free to change whatever Medicare Advantage plan it wants. It could do Humana or Cigna or the plethora of Medicare Advantage plans that are out there. The city tailored this plan to meet the city's best needs, but it's not tied just to Humana. Now, I want to talk about Singletary just for a bit. This court, of course, is not bound by Singletary because all the facts are all in evidence here. They're all stipulated. So this court is free to determine what the law is. But I want to point out that in the Singletary case, prescription wasn't an issue because Mr. Singletary filed suit within 1 year of that change. So that really, prescription was not an issue in Singletary at all. And in Singletary, no issue was raised regarding the amendment and termination provisions that were already in the city's health plan. It didn't come up in that case. I don't know why I didn't represent the city in that case. I can't answer that, but it didn't come up. Now, to address what counsel has said, counsel for the plaintiff, the city is not taking away the right of Mr. Bourne to participate in the city's health plan. All it's saying is, you still can participate in the city's health plan. This is how you do it. And if you want to participate in it, then you're going to be in Medicare Advantage instead of in Medicare Parts A and B. That's all this is. That's what this case is about.